Well, hello, y'all. Hey, my name is Doug Pagitt, and I'm going to be your host for this session. I appreciate you being here. If we're Wild Goose friends already, nice to see you again. And to those of you that are new friends, we'll see you tonight at the Honky Tonk, which is really a highlight of the Wild Goose Festival. I am really glad to be in this conversation talking about if faith and democracy are actually something we can pull off. What do we do about both of those elements that seem to have a disquieted relationship with each other in the United States, leading to Christian nationalism and lots of other things. So that's going to be our conversation. Now, that might be a conversation that you want to just talk about for 10 minutes. You know, maybe you're like, I don't need 50 minutes on that. That's a lot. You know, it's like when you're deciding what show you're going to watch. You're like, I'm going to do 30 minutes, or we'll do 45, or maybe an hour and a half. So there might be something else you want to do. My feelings will not be hurt. If you were to leave this session at some point, now or later, I'm guessing that's because you're figuring out how to take care of you at the Wild Goose Festival, which is goal one, to figure out what works for you. If you were to leave, you might want to consider Stan Mitchell, who's doing a session right now, right on the other side of this tent. Stan's fantastic. So if you're going to leave me, go to Stan. Or there's another one I saw that if I wasn't here, I would be at the one on internal family systems. If you're unfamiliar with that psychological understanding, it's kind of like how in a family, you have different characters, you know, like some of you are the organizer and other people are kind of the rebel and some people are the rule followers, right, in your family. The idea of internal family systems is that inside of each of us, we actually have different characters in our personality that play those roles. So like on the weekend, the rebel gets to take over, but during the week, the organizer takes over. And we're actually dealing with ourselves sort of like the little angel on this one shoulder and the little devil on the other. It extends that. So anyway, there's a whole session on that going on right now. I wouldn't mind if you left and went to that one. So if you kind of get if you get enough, now I'm just making it worse. I know the FOMO is just building and building and building. And then a guy named Josh, who I just heard lead music over on the main stage, is leading a songwriting workshop on creation and climate, trying to create new climate music. Well, that one sounds great. So anyway, I think it's really great that you're here for this conversation. So classic Wild Goose, too many good things. Some of you are literally thinking of leaving. I won't mind. I'm going to do this. I'm going to just shut my eyes for 15 or 20 seconds. For those of you that are like, I really actually do want to leave, but I don't want to do it in front of him. No, you know what I'll do? I'll just turn my back for 15 seconds. If you need to leave, you just go ahead and leave. It won't bother me for a minute. Really? That kid is actually leaving. You can't actually leave. That's all a shtick. It's all to keep you. No, that little guy is fantastic. You go, young fella. Run. Hey, if you're not on our email list for a group that I run called Vote Common Good, I'm going to send around this bucket. It has white blank cards in it. Give us any information you want to give us. Your name. If you want us to text you, give us your phone number. If you just want email, your email, your mother's maiden name, last 4 digits on your debit card, anything like that you want to give us. And then we'll be in touch with you. And we send emails. It's going to be from Vote Common Good, and thank you for wearing the shirt. Don't worry, we don't email you like 3 times a week. We're not a group like that. We email you 4 times a week. Really, we do. We send you 4 a week. Anyone on our email list already? Is it true? Do we send you 4 a week? Yes. We will never forget you. You will be in our database forever. And we text you on occasion. So if you want to keep up, would you mind just passing that around? You can either hold the card and give it later or fill it out and drop it in the bucket or whatever you want to do. Okay. Let me give we're going to do Q&A and group response multiple times over the course of our next 40 minutes. So questions are not just going to come at the end. They're going to come with little breaks as we make our way, okay? So if you're somebody like me who likes to contribute when you're in a room like this, hold tight. It's coming very quick. There'll be a chance for you to say something and get you re-engaged. I organize a group called Vote Common Good, and we do a couple of things. When I'm being a little sassy and clear, I say we try to help religious people break their addiction of only voting for Republicans if they carry such an addiction. Other days I say we try to get religious people to stop voting for Donald Trump. Other days we say we're trying to get people to make the common good their voting criteria rather than their political party affiliation. All of those lead to the same outcome. So that's what we do. We travel in a bus that says faith, hope, and love supporting democracy for all. And then on the back corner panels of the rear of the bus, one side says confronting Christian nationalism for the common good, and the other side says resisting insurrections for the common good. The banner over each of those statements is the phrase, we the people. Because I think there's a fundamental question in the United States. Who do we consider the we of we the people? And when we say supporting democracy for all, we think all means all, y'all. That means we're going to share our country. We're going to share every level of government, state, local, federal, city, with people we disagree with. We will share it with Christian nationalists, people who want the United States to explicitly give more benefit to Christians in the law and from the law than non-Christians. We're going to share our country, our government, our streets with people who believe you should only elect a Christian to any office of government because this is a Christian nation. Those people are our fellow citizens. They are our brothers and sisters. They are part of the all y'all. So when we feel the temptation to speak up to our Christian nationalist friends who do not want all y'all, they want some to be in charge and to host all, but all don't get to be at the same level of we. The counter to that is all. This is tough. This is tough. Now, not at a theological level. I'm an allist, a theological allist, so I think God, that all live and move and have their being in God, as the Apostle Paul likes to quote a poet from his day to say. I like that a lot, wrote a whole book about that, in fact. So we all live in and find our being in God, so there's no outsiders. Theologically, I'm all there. We talk about democracy, I'm all there for all of us. But when it actually practically comes down to the moment and Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House of Representatives at the federal government, it drives me crazy that those people also get to make laws and run things, right? So I live with a contradiction. I want to invite you to consider if you also live with a contradiction. My belief is all. My lived experience is, damn it, that's hard when those alls are people that want something exactly opposite of me. I have the gift that people in my life who I love, parents, technically in-laws, but I'm going to try not to be so particular about it, parents and children differ with me completely on who our candidates should be and what the problem and what the solutions are. I think there's flaws that they see as features. They think the things I see as features are the flaws, and we're in our families together. We share children and grandchildren and are in the family pictures, and I'm not talking about the other being someone else. I'm talking about the other being the closest people to me. Is that the situation for anybody else? It's your family, your loved ones. All right. So we're not just talking about how do you understand those different from us that we don't know. It's like, how do I understand my son Chico? If you follow me on Facebook, you'll know my son Chico tells me all the time about why I'm wrong about Donald Trump and why he's right about supporting Donald Trump and why my support of Black Lives Matter is the problem and not the solution. So we do this stuff sometimes, out in the open because, well, that's just how life seems to go. So that's what, when we're talking about this question of faith and democracy, I'm full of contradictions. Maybe you are too. The text that my Christianity uses, the 66 books of the Protestant Bible, is full of contradictions. And I picked up a great little gift from someone yesterday. We were sitting up at the place where you can get food from the Delia Field, the Delia Project. Has anybody had lunch up there yet? Delia Grove, thank you, Delia Grove. They're a nonprofit group that works with people who are impacted by domestic abuse, and those are the people working there. And it's a nonprofit group that makes lunches and stuff for you. So really great. So I was sitting there having lunch with those folks, and person sitting next to me, we were chatting. I'm wondering if he's here because we've kind of become a bit of buddies here. And he said this great line. He was talking about something, and he said, part of the reason why, for me, he's saying for him in his life, the Bible is really powerful for him, is that the Bible is full of contradictions. And he said, the Bible's so full of contradictions, and so am I. So it kind of helps me to find a text and a history that helps me figure out how to live with the contradictions in a way of love. Like, damn, that's great, right? Okay, so we're full of contradictions. The solution is the people we love and we know. We're not talking about others. We're talking about how are we actually going to get along in this country with each other. And one of the struggles is that faith can become an identity for all of us, and politics can become an identity for all of us. And sometimes we're not very good at having multiple identities, or as I like to say, diversifying our identities. And we end up wedding the two together. So we think the things that we hold in our faith commitments and the things we hold in our political commitments become wedded together, and we're not sure what to do. So then we're not sure if we're talking about our faith or our religion or our politics or our governance. It just all gets tangled up in us. And no one I've met yet is very good at separating those pieces. So we're in a conundrum. We've got ourselves in a pickle. And it's from that we have to figure out, what do we do about faith in America in light of a pluralistic democracy? If you struggle with that, if you wonder, where does your faith end and your political commitments begin? That is the American project. Does anybody else smell natural gas right now? Is anybody else smelling that? Could somebody just light a lighter and we'll see where it's coming from? Anybody? You think it's the toilet? They're burning the porta potty. They're emptying the porta potties. Oh, woo, way better. We started driving here on Tuesday. From the bus we travel in was in Minneapolis. So Tuesday we left, and on Monday, my wife came home about 3 o'clock. I had made something for lunch at about noon, and she walks up to the stove and says, "Should the burner still be on? Should the gas stove burner still be burning right now?" I said, "No, I must have left it on for 3 hours, just burning in my kitchen. Any of the rest of you?" Fortunately, it was burning. It wasn't just releasing gas. So when I smell that, I'm like, probably somewhere I left the burner on again. If that connects with any of you, welcome to the world of us. The question of where does our faith begin, where does our faith and where do our politics intersect or begin, it is the question that this country has struggled with from the beginning. There's nothing more American than struggling with, what do we do about religion and politics? That's as American as you get. Here's why I think that. Because when we wrote a Constitution, they immediately started writing some amendments to the Constitution. It was part of the constitutional project. The very first one tried to address the question of religion and politics. It's called the Establishment Clause. They said in the First Amendment, you're going to have some freedoms. Freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and the federal government will not back any religion and will not prevent the free exercise thereof. This was so top of mind because the colonies that had been the foundation for the revolution had many colonies that did have religious preference. Do any of you currently live in a state that had religious preference that you know of? What state? Pennsylvania. Who was it in Pennsylvania? The Quakers. You had to be a Quaker to be in charge of Pennsylvania. So the question, is America a Christian nation? Some people would say it depends on where you start the story. Anybody else live in a state that had religious requirements? Rhode Island for a little while. Anybody else? Places? Maryland. We have a long history. So when the founders said, okay, we got to figure out this religion and politics thing, they made a choice. No establishment of religion at the federal level. Some people, I think they're wrong, are like, but that only meant the federal level, not the state level, and I think they're just wrong about that. They don't think they are, and hence we're having discussions and arguments because what Americans are doing for 280, 90 some odd years is arguing about what are we doing about religion and faith. Here's why I bring that up, because sometimes when you talk to people who want to reconsider the role of religion in America and turn over our government to people like Mike Johnson, who runs the House of Representatives, to people like Josh Hawley, who's a senator, to people like Donald Trump, who want there to be a Christian preference in America, it's easy for us to say, that's ridiculous. It's not legitimate. You can't think that. I think they're wrong. I would encourage you to believe that they're wrong. I want to help you, if you want any help at all, to know how to describe that it's wrong, but it's not ridiculous. It used to be an option. Now, I would say we decided very clearly we are not doing that. And they said, well, we decided very clearly a lot of things back then that we've reconsidered. That was the same period of time when they wrote that First Amendment that they also said, oh, and by the way, you still get to own other human beings. They were wrong, and that had to be amended. There are people just flat out arguing they made decisions and it was wrong. I only bring that up for this point. It is our project in 2024 to reconsider and rework where we're going to be on faith and democracy and not outsource it to 1894, to 1742, to 1612. It's our job right now to be in that work. So thank you for being in that work. Thank you for being a part of it. It's as American as it comes. There are some things in America that we can look back on and say, decision made, we're all done. No one's talking about us reuniting with England. That one's done. But how we're doing it, we are renegotiating that all the time. And if anything needs to remind you of that, just take a look at the current United States Supreme Court. They are reconsidering all kinds of things because that's what we do in America. So we've got to be ready to take on this battle. Now, I wished and hoped that the Christian nationalists that have been around the whole time would just stay kind of unimportant, unorganized, and uninspiring. Well, that didn't work. So what are we going to do? So this is our project, Faith and Democracy, and can we pull it off? All right, we're going to take a break there. Questions, comments, feedback on this, that, or anything. And feel free to say yes, no, maybes to any of that. There is a microphone. If you don't want to speak into it, I'll repeat the question, but we'd love to have you. So if you want to come up, you can use it, or we'll bring it to you. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So I see that hand. Do you want to try it from there, or you want to come on up? Okay.
Well, one of the things that I'm concerned about is, yes, we live in a democracy. However, there are some things that up until recently I thought were fairly well the consensus was that, and one of the things is nonviolence, right? Is that we decide in a democracy, we make decisions that are based on nonviolent agreements and that kind of thing. So I just thought I'd add.
Thank you. Tell me your name. Jim. Jim made this great statement that you all heard. A lot of us just assumed that baked in was we're not going to be violent against each other like we did that time before. We're not going to war, and we're not going to use person-on-person violence. Many of us thought that's something that kind of allowed the United States to stand out as a bright, shining light on a hill, that we would use the democratic system in our republic. By the way, the new movement of conservatives are very anxious to remind you that we're not a democracy. Get yourself geared up for this. I hear it all the time. I heard it I was on a podcast on Fox News this morning by the religion reporter at Fox News named Lauren Green with a Christian nationalist from Greensboro named Alex McFarland, and we did an interview thing, us debating this. He tried to make this point that we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. Then I had to remind him we are a constitutional republic that uses the democratic system for the selection of our leaders. So we have a democratic system of selection, that the noun is a republic, but the verb is a democracy. It's exhausting. But what they're doing, and I suggested to him that what he's doing is trying to soften it up because Donald Trump does not want us to talk about democracy, wants us to talk about power sharing in a republic. So that's going on. But we thought there was an agreement that citizens wouldn't use violence against other citizens. We have to recognize we've never been quite comfortable that our government wouldn't use violence against the citizens. Hoses, knees on necks, handcuffs, incarceration. We've been very comfortable with the government using some level of violence to secure our liberty. So I'm with you, Jim. And now, after January 6th, and after the meetings that I've gone to run by Christian nationalists, they are absolutely saying when the time comes, violence is acceptable. There we've crossed a line, and we have a presidential candidate who was a former president who says, I just want to punch him in the face. So, okay, there's another one of our disillusionment moments that we now need to decide, will we use that or will we not? And we need to call it to the surface. And I would encourage you to take Jim's question as a pathway forward, which is to family members and loved ones again, to say, are you committed to nonviolence? A really, really good question. Are you committed to nonviolence? It's a really good question to each other as well. Are we committed to nonviolence? The answer may not be yes, but it's a great question. Yes?
Yeah, I'll use my teacher voice.
Gotcha.
Heather Cox Richards. Anybody ever read? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you guys read this morning, but they talked about an intimidation list by the intimidation czar.
Yeah.
That Trump is going to not only intimidate, but he's going to prosecute in jail his political enemies for treason.
Yeah.
And that could mean journalists like Rachel Maddow. That could mean Adam Schiff. That could mean any number of people, not only in Congress, but also in journalism, and I would imagine in some progressive religious realms as well.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
That it is true. You should follow Heather Cox Richardson's Substack and email if you don't already. I'd highly encourage that. I read it most every day. Do you have a comment on that? Something else? Okay. I'll just finish this one and then we'll go right to you. Donald Trump has made it perfectly clear that he wants to keep an enemies list, has assigned an individual whose name now I've forgotten. Yesterday I'd remembered it, but there was a honky-tonk last night and I lost some brain cells. Mike Hill? I think that's right. There is a person who's in charge of that project. They are serious about it. People at this festival will be on that list. He cannot be the next president of these United States. Oh. I don't mean to be mean to Germans, but it sounds about right. Secretary of Retribution. Serious about stuff like this. Yep. Okay, one more, and then I've got a couple things to say.
How important is it that we learn about the tenets of these Christian nationalists? Like, I was at a indoctrination, 5.5 hours of movie. We learned about the 7 mountains, and the national monument used to be the Pilgrim Monument. How important is that we learn about this kind of, and all kinds of other the castle doctrine?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay, great question. How important is it to know the ins and outs and details of what Christian nationalism, how it functions, what its bases are, and so on? It depends on who you are. If you're the kind of person who wants to engage with others in conversation where you know a lot about this, I would highly encourage you to find the resources to learn about it. We offer those resources. Our organization travels the country and runs hour-and-a-half-long, 2-hour-long seminars on how to understand and confront Christian nationalism through empathy and engagement. We take you through all that kind of stuff. I'm in a film called God and Country. If you haven't seen that film, God and Country, that's one. There's one called True Believer. There's one called Sedition. There's a bunch of these documentaries and films. There's other organizations leading on this. There's a bunch of organizations here. Lots of people to help you understand Christian nationalism. If that's your thing, please come to one of ours, find our curriculum online, ask us to host one at your place. We do all this stuff for free because other people like you all fund us. That's why you're going to be on our email list. And then we offer all this stuff for free. Super important. If you're the kind of person for whom that helps you overcome your anxiety and engage with empathy, if that's the kind of thing that just freaks you out, there is no need. Those of you that were just in a session I did a minute ago, I'm going to use my same eczema little illustration. So please tolerate me, a middle-aged man again talking about his skin conditions. Please just tolerate this for a minute. But since I was a kid, I've had eczema. I used to have it mostly on my feet. Now it pops up in all kinds of places. Sometimes on my hand. Well, it's a little bit right there. A little bit on my hand, so glad to shake hands with you later. It just pops up. Here's the thing about eczema. I don't know why I get it. Dermatologists barely know why you get it. If you ask me about eczema, here's what I can tell you. I get it, I put cream on it, and it makes it better. That's what I know. But I experience it. It is important in my life. It can become debilitating and painful. But I don't know how it works. For some of you, that's how you can approach Christian nationalism. I don't know how it works. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know the 7 mountains. I don't know the watchtower people. But I know it's real. I know it shows up. I know it's painful, and we have to do something about it. That can be enough. If that fills your anxiety cup and takes care of it, and you're confident now to move forward, and you're like, I know people. Like when I had to get a prescription for this eczema, because I don't like go to regular dermatologists anymore. Anyway, I went to an online person, sent them a picture, and then we had a quick little phone call, and then they wrote me a prescription. It cost me $35 because I have terrible insurance under Obamacare, which is $13,000 a year deductible. Like I would have to spend $13,000. That's the only thing I have is eczema. So anyway, I just used somebody, sent them a picture, told them what I had. They helped me. We moved on. Because I'm like, there's someone who knows what this is and what will help. If you need to know, someone knows what Christian nationalism is and what we should do, Vote Common Good can be your online dermatologist for Christian nationalism outbreaks, okay? So we're glad to do that. Why I think that's such an insightful question is, you are the most important elements in your engagement of Christian nationalism and faith and democracy. You are the key. You as a human being, the one you see in the mirror when you choose to look at yourself, that is for you the most important. Start with what you need to be engaged and then go from there. Now, I think that happens to be pretty good just life advice about important things anyway, but on this one, it really matters because if you start borrowing other people's things to tell you how you need to behave, it is endless. There will be no end to how much more you should know, what next book you should read, what next Zoom thing you should be on, what next curriculum you should follow, the next organization you should donate to. Just give us all your money and we'll take care of it from here. That's what I'm saying. We're your one-stop shop. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying figure out you and what you need. If you really want in on this, you might want to start traveling around talking to people about it. We really are here at the Wild Goose Fest. I mean, I've been here every year, but we're here as an organization because we want to recruit you. I like to refer to it as our Harvey Milk moment for those who happen to know that reference. And if you don't, just let that slide. It's our Harvey Milk moment. We're here to recruit you. We want to take you with us. We want you on that bus that's parked right behind this tent. Literally, walk down there now and put your name on the bus. We want you on the bus with us. Maybe we want you in the bus with us. Maybe you want to travel in Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona, the places that are going to matter in this next election. They're going to be probably decided by 15 to 50,000 people in each state. The number of people in those states that will decide the Electoral College are less people than show up at a NASCAR race on any given Friday night. 150,000 people, maybe, will be the deciders of this. That's a movable number of people. The great majority of those people are those that hold to Christian faith, likely inside the evangelical or Catholic traditions. They are movable. That's the work we do. Maybe you want to travel with us. Maybe you've got your own little trailer because you got yourself here. So we know you people are willing to do crazy stuff like to go to a field in North Carolina and sit in the heat. You're our kind of people. So maybe you want to come with us for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. Like you're thinking, I don't know a lot about Christian nationalism, but I want to get out there. Or maybe you want to sign Faithful America's petitions and you want to share it with your friends and you like to do it that way. You figure out what for you. If you want to know, documentaries and curriculum galore, but you don't need to. But here's what I think you do need to do, is know someone who holds the views that are opposite from yours on these important issues. Preferably that it's someone you care for and could even say they're a friend or you love them. If you don't have a Christian nationalist friend, make it a goal in the next 3 months to meet someone and to become their friend, so that whenever you speak about Christian nationalism, you can say to yourself, I have a friend who's a Christian nationalist, and I will not lose my love for my friend over this. Because you can gain the whole world and lose your very soul. And if we can sing with the tongues of angels, if we can clear the Christian nationalist movement from our rhetoric, and we do not have love, there's probably a great ending to that, but I can't figure it out. But there's probably a good ending to it, so if anybody has one, let me know what that could be. Oh, we're like a ganging cymbal or a gong, yeah. How does one prepare to engage with Christian nationalists or white Christian nationalists? Can I make a comment about the white Christian nationalists versus Christian nationalists? Here's part of the reason that we use Christian nationalism as opposed to the term white Christian nationalism in our organizational branding. I'm in lots of groups where we use white Christian nationalism. There are many movements of Christian nationalism inside the black church and the Hispanic church. They're not rooted the same as white Christian nationalists, but Christian nationalism is a problem in the United States. It's a problem in other countries, and religious nationalism is a problem in other nations and in some parts of this country as well. Sometimes it's specifically rooted to a white narrative, but in the United States, my take is race is the context that everything is in. It's not just the topic of some movements. Everything is influenced by race because of our history. So we're always dealing with white, brown, black, multiracial communities. But if we fool ourselves into believing that the problem with Christian nationalism is its only whiteness, the founders were not trying to keep out Christian nationalism for singular reasons. They thought religion taking over government, and pastors of every tradition have believed that the government being embedded with religion is a problem, full stop. And then there are multiple variants of Christian nationalism in the United States. There are hardcore white Christian nationalists. There are softcore white Christian nationalists. That whiteness is really the thing. They're using Christian nationalism to secure their whiteness, for sure. And there are people who are using Christian nationalism to secure their Christianness, for sure. So it's super complicated. So we use the terms interchangeably, and exclusively at different times. So we're kind of a mess on that because it's more complicated than any one term. You didn't ask me that, but I just took that as a guy on this little mini stage with a microphone. I think your question is, how do you prepare for it? Do you remember when the Christian nationalists organized a bunch of truckers to go to Eagle Pass, Texas in January to bring God's army to the border as a militia group to protect Eagle Pass from what they said was an invasion? Do you remember this? We learned of that on Tuesday. It was going to happen on Saturday. We fortunately have a bus that happened to then be in Minneapolis, which is where I live, so it ends up there a lot, with all that stuff on it that I described. So we just reached out to a bunch of you all and said, can you help us get there? And people sent us enough money that Dan and I jumped in the bus. Dan's right back there somewhere. Jumped in the bus and drove from Minneapolis to Eagle Pass, Texas, which is down on the border, and rolled up on the trucker brigade that was coming and went to the camp where they were going to be and brought this big bus up because we're like, oh, we're going to bring diesel vehicles with a message about Christian nationalism to Eagle Pass, Texas? Okay. Like, tailor-made for us. Here we go. Driving down, we had to ask that question. What's our posture going to be? We pulled up in front, and you can watch, we have YouTube videos of all this. We pull up with our confronting Christian nationalism, resisting insurrections, faith, hope, and love, supporting democracy for all messaging on the vehicle. The guy letting people in comes running out, stops us, says, you can't come. He's yelling at us. I was on your website. You guys don't get to be here. This whole fight sort of thing, argument thing sort of breaks out. You can't be here. People are booing us. They're yelling. It's chaos. Our response to all that stuff is like more engagement, more empathy, more friendliness. So we pulled the bus up past the gate, 150 yards or so, parked, and came walking back. We'd rolled up about 10 or 11 in the morning, and the brigade was late, but there were hundreds of people around at this thing already. By the time 9 o'clock rolls around, we're having selfies with these people. We're handing out water. Well, the guy who told us we can't come is actually, by the end of it, saying to us, well, actually, if I didn't have to be here and I didn't have a criminal record, I'd be on the bus with you guys because I didn't know what you guys were actually doing. This happens over and over and over and over again. We're going to roll up on the Republican National Convention on Thursday in Milwaukee, and it's going to happen again. There's going to be people that scream at us and yell at us, and within hours, the tone's going to shift. So our tactic is kindness, empathy, and engagement, and real clarity. Like, we are not unclear about what we're doing. The thing that really turned the tide there was a bunch of fundamentalist pastors showed up with, you're going to hell, everybody's going to hell, Muslims are evil. When they brought that, they're like, well, those are people we don't want in here, and like, you guys are better than, like, they start doing that thing, right? The real world environment for all of us brings our contradictions to the surface and then presents us an opportunity. Can we be different in light of the contradictions? When we live in a world where we're not contradictory and our clear convictions are not challenged, everything works. As soon as you get out in the real world and you're sitting on the ground or talking to people, all of a sudden it starts to fall. Can I tell you one story about this? One more from this. Later, 2 days later, we were still in Eagle Pass, and there were then a bunch of protesters because the governor of Texas, who's named Greg Abbott, and, you know, we say about Greg Abbott what we say about Donald Trump. He's a beloved child of God, light of the world, salt of the earth, as we all are. But not every light of the world should be the governor of Texas, and that man needs to take his dim little light and stop bothering the good people of Texas. So God bless him. Can't wait to spend all of whatever's after this with him, but he shouldn't be doing that. There's a number of things Greg Abbott shouldn't be doing, and being the governor is one of them. Has nothing to do with his beloved child of Godness, as all of us are. But we're pretty clear he shouldn't have that job. So he was giving a speech and being surrounded by a bunch of other governors with flak jackets on in the small little town of Eagle Pass where people live every day. There was a guy sitting on the ground, and we were People from the town and us were on one side of the small little street, and all the pro-immigration, build the wall, Trump supporters were on the other, and there was lots of exchange happening across the street. And we would move back and forth, interviewing people and talking to them and all this. And if you want to sit over a beer tonight, I'll tell you hundreds of stories about this stuff. But one guy, older guy and his wife, I mean, late 60s, older than me. I'm old, was a bit older. Had a Trump hat on, and he said, "Hey, you seem to be talking to everybody. Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why do they think we hate migrants?" Pointing across the street at the people from the town. "Why do they think we hate migrants?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, I think it's because you're wearing a Donald Trump hat." And Donald Trump, just earlier that week, Donald Trump had said, "Immigrants are polluting the bloodstream of America." And I said, "Because you're wearing a Trump hat and Donald Trump said this, so I think they think you think that." He said, "Donald Trump didn't say that." I said, No, he did." And then he said, "No, he didn't." And then I said, "Yes, he did." And then he said, "No, he didn't." And then we did. And then I think I said, "I'm rubber, you're glue." And then he said, "Well, you've got a phone in your pocket, right? Show me where he said it." So I do a quick Google search, and I show him an article quoting Trump. He says, "That's what someone said Trump said." I did that, and I clicked on the video link, when you search in Google, and click on the video link, and it pops up a video of Donald Trump, and I show it to him, and he plays it, and Donald Trump says, "Immigrants are polluting the bloodstream of America." To which then he says, "Okay, he said that once, but I don't know that that's what he meant." Okay, here's the moment, right? One option is this man is dishonest, or at best experiencing cognitive dissonance, but he's dishonest. Another option, and there might be plenty more, but another option is he didn't want that to be true. He doesn't think that. He doesn't want Donald Trump to have said it. I think it's better that guy said Trump didn't mean it than the people on the others down the way from his side of the street that said, "I agree with Donald Trump. They're polluting the bloodstream of America." So how do we prepare? We're going to find a win. That's an opening. There's a possibility with that guy. Then he was really mad at me and said, "Take your phone and get out of here. We're done talking," right? But I left thinking, okay, I would rather have that guy say Donald Trump didn't mean that than to say, "I'm glad Donald Trump said it because I think it too." Now, is that glass half empty? Is that cognitive dissonance on my part? Or do we all know enough people who've had an experience like they were riding down a road on a horse to go and persecute some Christians and kill one like they killed Stephen, and then somehow they had a spiritual experience and they realized that the very thing they were opposed to was the thing they're supposed to join, and they go from being Saul to being Paul, and that's a story that we like to tell. I know lots of those stories. I think some of you are those stories. I think some of you voted and acted in ways that now you don't, and you've changed. And there's a possibility of change. And that guy's further along the change route than the people who said, "I'm glad he said it." So we tell those stories, and we encourage each other, and other people are like, yeah. Our neighbor down the street named Ken is a real strong Trump supporter. He was at we had a party in our yard on Sunday. Tim and Susie, you may have met Ken. 2020 in Minneapolis, near where we live, right near Minneapolis, Ken said at a little party at Halloween, our neighbor said to him, "Hey, Ken, how you doing?" She lives right across the street from Ken. Ken said, "Well, it's come to my attention that I am a racist, and I don't want to be anymore, so I'm going to start working on it." Right? Okay, so this is the moment, right? Ken's a racist. He says it. And he doesn't want to be anymore, and said he was going to work on it. I don't know. A little bit of hope. And all of us are like that. All right, we got 5 minutes left, so some questions, and then.
Question, we asking people not to vote for the Democratic candidate for president? Or are we asking people not to vote for Trump and not vote at all?
Great question. What's your name?
Tim.
Jim. Jim said, are we asking people, and I don't know if you mean should we or are we as an organization? I'll tell you what we as an organization do. We don't, two things. We don't ask people to change their mind about Donald Trump. Our line is, that guy's like a self-cleaning oven. He does all the work for you. If you've watched him, paid attention, and you're not ready to not vote for him, you know, nothing I can say. I mean, just rewind the tape. But we know there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable and don't want to, but they're not sure what they're going to do because religion and politics have been so blended for so many people. What we encourage people to do is to take their own vote as theirs. And our begging is just don't vote for that guy. Do you write someone in? Do you vote for the Democratic candidate? Do you not vote at all? All good options. Here's why from our vantage point. We have an electoral college in the United States where you have to have 270 electoral votes. Donald Trump needs to achieve nearly 80% of evangelicals and nearly 60% of Catholics in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and part of Arizona. If he doesn't hit those numbers, if he's at 70% of evangelicals, 72%, if he's at 51% of Catholics, he cannot win. So I've spent my life like in Christian spirituality and inclusive Christian spirituality with big goals. Now I'm just like, could we get 35,000 people in Wisconsin to not vote for Donald Trump if they did last time? I think we can get 35,000. Maybe we can get 20,000. Maybe that'll do it. Like just that. So our encouragement to you is just say to people, it's okay if you don't. It's what's called in work a permission structure, which can sound kind of pejorative, but we all need permission structures in our lives to tell us that the change we're about to make is okay. If you've ever shifted from doing something that you thought was good to not doing that thing, there's a process you go through, and it doesn't matter what the thing is. Part of that process is someone like you who stopped doing the thing or started doing the alternative thing. You just need to see it. You could be that for someone. When I wake up in the morning, you know what I don't say to myself? I'm an evangelical. When I go on Fox News, do you know what I say about myself? I am an evangelical. You know why? Because I'm an evangelical. I'm a progressive evangelical. I think to be a true evangelical, you have to be inclusive. You have to, all means all that stuff. Like that's what it means to be an evangelical. And a couple of people don't get that apparently. So we're here to help. But that's what it means to be. So I say, but I don't walk around with that as an identity. But a lot of people do. And they think what it means to be an evangelical is you vote for Republicans. But a lot of people are members of black churches. Think that what it means to be a member of a black church is you vote for the Democratic Party no matter what. Religion and politics get wedded together in our nation. Always have, probably always will. And a few people are willing to be outliers and to break from the norm. So we call them heroes. You're willing to do something that you didn't think you were willing to do before for the common good. Part of the permission structure is offering to people the common good as their voting criteria rather than their political platform. That's the stuff we do. All right, I'd be glad to chat afterward, but I got a 2-minute warning about 2 minutes ago. If you want to be on our mailing list, fill out one of those little cards. We have a booth over there. We have a bus back there we'd love for you to sign or come in. By the way, if you need air conditioning at some point today, there's air conditioning running in the bus. Just open the door, get in, sit down, open the fridge, have a drink, relax, and say, maybe I should spend more time in this bus. And I am totally serious about that. Hey, I'll do my Joe Biden. I'm not kidding. No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. I'm serious about that, really. But truly, I'm serious about that. Go get in the bus if you're hot, or go sign the bus if you're not, or do whatever, or see us over at the table. Thank you for being a part of all of this, and thanks for being a part of the Wild Goose Festival.